I wanted to see if I could take this ring sketch and rebuild it as a comic-style blender scene using grease pencil. This is panel 1 of a small comic story about a black cat exploring the city. The emotion for this frame is curiosity. The idea is that this tiny cat has just arrived on a rainy rooftop and is seeing the city for the first time. So the goal for this video is simple. Start with a physical ink drawing and recreate the same frame in Blender and see if I can keep the hand-drawn feeling in the final render. I started with a very basic light pencil outline. At this stage, I was mostly thinking about the composition. I wanted the cat to feel small and new to the sprawling city, but still visible enough that it would not disappear in the frame. The cat is the emotional anchor of the frame, but I also wanted the water tower on the right to work as a strong visual anchor. At first, I was not fully happy with the cat scale, so I erased it and redrew it a couple of times until the size felt right. I wanted it to feel small compared to the city, but still clear enough that you can read the raised paw, the tail, and the curious pose. Once a pencil sketch was in place, I started going over the outlines with ink. I'm using Miro pens here, which I really like and have been using for a long time. I also use a brush pen for larger dark areas and stronger accents. The ink version is messy, but in a good way. I did not want it to feel too clean or polished. I wanted it to look like a comic panel that was drawn quickly with a bit of energy. The cross-hatching is doing most of the atmosphere here. It helps separate the buildings, sky, water tower, and rooftop without needing too much detail everywhere. Then I added the clouds, rain lines, puddles, and the smaller rooftop details. With the sky, rain, clouds, and rest of the details drawn in, the ink sketch was done. The biggest challenge here was the age-old question. How do I keep a hand-drawn feeling in 3D? The tricky part was I did not want the Blender version to become a perfect 3D scene. I wanted it to keep some of the flaws, looseness, and rhythm of the original drawing. So the rest of the video is basically solving that problem. Using Blender for structure, but using grease pencil and procedural hatching to keep the comic style look. I started the Blender version with a simple Blockout. Most of the buildings are just basic boxes, because the final image depends more on the silhouette, composition, and line hierarchy than detailed modeling. In some places, I created a few extra shapes like terraces and roof details, but overall, I kept the geometry very simple. The goal was not to make a realistic city. The goal was to create enough structure so that the final render could feel like the ink sketch. I also added a light source early on, roughly matching the direction of the light in the original drawing. Then I created this world shader so I could control the light and sky color separately. That gave me a bit more flexibility when matching the mood of the sketch. Once a blockout, camera, and basic lighting felt close, I moved on to the cross-hatching pass. For the base render, I used procedural cross-hatching to quickly get a drawing-like texture across the scene. This gives everything a unified ink treatment before I added the hand-painted grease pencil details. I first drew a simple hatching texture with single diagonal lines at around 45-degree angle. I made sure the texture was seamless because otherwise it would not tile properly inside Blender. It is not perfect, but that actually works for this style. The slight imperfections help it feel closer to a real sketch. Then, I started creating the procedural shader. First, I created a basic toon shader, which is something I have used in a few stylized projects before. It is a simple principal BSDF connected to a shader to RGB node and a color ramp. After that, I mixed in the hatching texture using linear light. To create the cross-hatching effect, I duplicated the texture setup. In the mapping node of the duplicated texture, I rotated the Y value until the lines moved in the opposite direction. Then I mixed that second texture back in, again using linear light. The two color ramps control how much of each hatch direction is visible. In this case, the first texture fades gradually while the rotated texture fades much faster. It is still a procedural setup, but it gives me a good base that already feels close to an ink drawing. Here is a final shader if you want to pause the video. Before starting the hand-painted grease pencil details, I quickly made the cat model itself. As you can see, it is not very well defined, and that was intentional. Since the cat is going to use a pitch black shader in the final render, I wasn't too concerned about making the model perfect from every angle. I mainly just wanted it to read well from the camera view. With that done, I moved on to the hand-painted grease pencil details. This is a stage where the scene really starts to feel closer to the original sketch. I began by drawing the distant buildings as simple 2D grease pencil planes with the outlines first and with the fill color. After that, I manually added some cross-hatching details to help them blend better with the rest of the scene. Once the background buildings were in place, the next step was adding window details to the 3D buildings. I kept these very simple at first. The idea was to just establish the shapes and then add more detail to the nearby buildings later during the polish stage. After that, I started adding the details like bricks, cracks, and window shadows to the buildings that are closer to the camera. These are the elements that help the scene feel a bit more hand-drawn and imperfect. The clouds are also just grease pencil planes. I wanted the sky to stay fairly open so the scene would have some space to breathe. At one point, my wife mentioned that the cloud placement looked a bit like smoke, which I thought was a fair point, so I moved them around until the shapes felt more natural. And finally, I added some wear and tear details to the water tower so it wouldn't feel too clean compared to the rest of the scene. With most of the drawing details in place, the next step was working on the puddles, rain, and small bits of animation. For the puddles, I made a 2D plane in the shape of water patches and gave it a simple reflective shade so it could reflect parts of the scene. I also added some displacement using noise to break up the surface a bit and make it feel a bit less flat. I'm showing the final shader setup here in case you want to pause the video and take a closer look. To help create more depth and scale, I also added extra layers of clouds in the background and gave them a bit of subtle motion. I also blurred clouds by an amount proportional to distance from camera, since typical depth of field does not work with grease pencil. Here you can see me quickly animating the water, clouds, and other minute details throughout the scene. I did something similar to the cat as well. Using shape keys, I added slight movement to the tail, body, and ears. It's a small detail, but it helps the final shot feel a bit more alive. And finally, for the rain, I reused the main setup from my earlier stylized tooth video. Before showing the final scene, I wanted to quickly go through a few challenges I ran into while making this. The biggest one was making sure that the cat stayed as the main emotional anchor of the frame. In a scene like this, it is very easy for the background to take over. There are buildings, clouds, rains, puddles, and a large water tower, so the cat can quickly get lost. I had to fix this through multiple iterations. Part of it was adjusting the cat's scale and placement, but it was also about designing the negative space in the sky so the image had room to breathe. Another thing I had to change was a water tower. It was becoming visually too heavy, so I reduced the thickness and intensity of some of the line details using a modifier that helped it stay as a visual anchor without stealing much attention from the cat. The other big challenge was matching the chaotic imperfection of the actual sketch. The sketch has a loose, messy quality that I really liked, but the Blender version naturally started feeling cleaner and more structured. I think the combination of using the procedural cross-hatching shader, hand-painted textures, and actual grease pencil line details helped bring back some of the handmade feeling. It is still not perfect, and there are definitely areas that I want to improve in the next frame, but I think this workflow worked well for the first panel. And here is a final Blender version. It is definitely cleaner and more structured than the original Link sketch, but I think it still keeps the main feeling that I wanted. A small cat has arrived somewhere new. The city is opening up in front of it, and the whole frame is about that first moment of curiosity. I especially like how the puddles, rain, and skyline help sell that feeling of a rainy rooftop without making the scene too complicated. This is only the first panel of the story. Next, I want to take the cat from the rainy rooftop into a warm, cluttered bookshop. That frame is going to have a completely different mood. Instead of open sky, rain, and city, it will be about warmth, books, shadows, and comfort. So the next challenge is going to be, can I build that same cozy feeling using ink, blender, and grease pencil? As always, thanks for watching the video and for all the support.